At least 210 Palestinians, including women and children, have been killed and hundreds more wounded in Israeli strikes on the Gaza Strip. The move has been widely condemned by world leaders and provoked demonstrations across the occupied territories and in Arab countries. Arab foreign ministers have also agreed to meet in Cairo on Sunday to seek a common position on the Israeli raids.
Israeli F-16 bombers launched a series of airstrikes in the Gaza Strip, killing and injuring scores of people. The strikes, that are the most intense in decades, came after last week's expiry of an Egyptian brokered truce between Hamas and Israel. Israel claims its warplanes targeted security compounds and militant bases, while Hamas and news outlets say dozens of civilians, including women and children, are among the dead. An unknown number of people are also believed to be under rubble. Hamas fired rockets into Israel in retaliation. The attack led to the death of one Israeli in the southern town of Nedivot. Palestinians in the West Bank and towns in northern Israel took to the streets to protest the attacks. Clashes broke out between protesters and Israeli police. Similar demonstrations were also reported in Lebanon. World leaders have also stepped in to condemn the attacks. They have called on the international community to react.
We have been shocked by this dangerous raid. I gave notification to the Arab group in New York to prepare for a meeting of the Security Council, and Libya called for this meeting as soon as possible to deal with the situation in Gaza.
This is the result of the very unfortunate silence of international bodies concerning the siege in Gaza.
Egypt, acting as a mediator between Hamas and Israel, has opened the Rafah crossing to allow in food and basic supplies. It has also pledged to do its best to restore calm, although facts on the ground suggest an all-out Israeli operation could be underway.
This operation will continue, expand and intensify as much as required.
The recent attacks are highly expected to worsen the already dire humanitarian situation in Gaza. More than 1.5 million people have been living under constant Israeli siege for over a year now, since the democratically elected government of Hamas took control of the region.
Thousands of people in different Arab countries have taken to the streets in protest at Israel's deadly airstrikes on the Gaza Strip. In the Lebanese capital, Beirut, protesters gathered outside the Egyptian embassy, calling on Cairo to open the Rafah crossing and support Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. In Egypt, demonstrators condemned the Israeli air raids and criticised the government for its failure to stop the massacre. Part of their anger was directed at Foreign Minister Ahmed Abul-Gheit, who met with his Israeli counterpart Tzipi Livni in Cairo only 2 days before the strike. Similar demonstrations were held in Syria, Jordan and the West Bank. Clashes between police and demonstrators were also reported in different cities in the West Bank as well. Well, we do have Yusuf Al-Halou with us now in Gaza to give us the latest from the situation there. Yusuf, give us an update.
Yes, Nargis, in the last hour, Israeli warplanes conducted 3 separate airstrikes, killing 7 Palestinians. And the number of Palestinians who have been killed so far in today's massive airstrikes has risen to 210. Now, most of the casualties are civilians, because the targets that Israel attacked actually located within, in the middle of civilian areas. And also that UNRWA's Commissioner General Karen Abu Zaid, she's actually expressed her shock from what she saw, and she demanded the Israeli government to hold all military activities and also to stop targeting civilians. You were actually broadcasting live images from Hamas Prime Minister Ismail Haniyeh, who actually delivered this speech on television, and he actually called on Palestinians to reunite, and he also said that Hamas will stand firm in the Palestinian territories here, and he also said that Hamas will stick to its principles. On the other hand, the Israeli outgoing Ehud Olmert, he said that his forces are not attacking ordinary Gazans, but we saw that most of the victims are civilians.
Youssef, You picked up on UNRWA there, and of course they're concerned about the humanitarian situation. We've spoken to them in the last few weeks leading up to and culminating with today's attacks, and they said that there's a humanitarian crisis going on in Gaza. But the Israeli Prime Minister, just in the last few hours, has said that he pledges to avert a humanitarian crisis inside the Gaza Strip. You're there. Is there a humanitarian situation, crisis, should I say, in Gaza, and how are the people dealing with it?
Well, Nargis, the humanitarian situation is catastrophic, it's disastrous, it's unbelievable. Israel has partially reopened two of the commercial crossings yesterday and allowed a very limited amount of industrial diesel for the power plant and also a limited amount of goods and other humanitarian aid. Yesterday's move was the first since more than 1 week ago, and Israeli officials said that yesterday's move was actually to deceive Palestinian people in order to attack on a sudden. So yes, I mean, Israel today carried out its massive airstrike on Gaza on a sudden, on the peak time where school children were actually leaving their schools. Among the casualties were school children. So, I mean, if you can see behind me, large areas of Gaza are plunged in darkness, and I would say Gaza has become a blood path. In addition to the humanitarian situation, it's deteriorating from bad to worse, and people are actually, struggling to, find bread in the bakeries. Most of the bakeries have closed down. And also there is lack in food, medicine. Now people actually I would say they will not sleep this night because they are expecting worse to come.
And that's the next step. It was called a humanitarian crisis. Gaza was called a prison by many human rights organisations, the UN, Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, just to name a few of the bigger organisations. And the fear must be tonight, as Gaza's gone dark again, and as we see behind you, it is in darkness, there is a lack of electricity. The fear must be is these will continue. How bad will they get, and what will happen to us? So the Gazans must be thinking.
Yes, that's right. Gaza is a densely populated area. 1.5 million Palestinians have been living in the Gaza Strip, which is called an open prison by all human rights organizations. It is really a prison. I mean, Israeli fences surrounding the eastern and northern Gaza Strip, and also from the sea, Israeli gunboats are patrolling the sea behind me, and from the, above our heads, Israeli unmanned helicopter F-16 hovering the skies above our heads. And now Israel claims it withdrew its forces in September 2005, but this proves that Israel still maintains full control of Gaza's airspace, territorial waters, and border crossings. Now, yes, Gazans will stay another night in the dark. It is really freezing, and people are struggling to get water, and also they are struggling to, to warm themselves. It's freezing here, really, and children will find it difficult to sleep tonight because most children who actually were in the street or watching television, they saw terrible images of bodies torn to pieces.
Yusuf Al-Halou, they're giving us an update on the situation in Gaza, and many thanks.